Good morning, everybody. Here we are at your team behind the scenes. We are a little but mighty group today. We have a few people celebrating holidays and at a doctor's appointment and traveling with their family finally. So here we are. Um, so today we thought we would talk about this whole adulting thing when it comes to our teens. And we kind of came up with this topic. I will say this weekend I had kind of a very much of a push me, pull you with one of my children about doing something that he has really resisted doing for a long time, even though it will ultimately benefit him. And it was just about um, changing something on a bank account that he has. And I kept saying, well, when are you going to go to the bank? You've got a little time off this week. And I felt like I was talking to an alien. And it just got me thinking about this whole idea of our kids really want us to leave them alone, let them be independent. I can do it, except for when they don't. And those times when they don't are the things that they really need to do. And so today we're going to kind of talk about what are some of the, what are some of the things that they should be able to do as independent adults? How have we been able to help them get there or not, as in my case? And where do we go from here? And if you've got any great ideas about how you've been able to get your kids to kind of get over that hump, I have some theories about it, but I'm going to wait until we hear what other people have to say. So on that note, I'm going to pass it to Emily.
Hi. This got me thinking, I have to say. One trick that I use is if there's something that the kids want to be old enough to do, then I say, well, if you're old enough to take the subway by yourself or whatever it is, then you're old enough to call this, place and cancel the appointment that you're now missing. Or so I try to link it in that way. Sometimes, like if there's a restaurant that they want to eat at, then say, well, like, that's not my first choice, but if you do the ordering yourself, then we'll do it, or something like that. Actually, my 14-year-old right now really wants to try a sort of sword martial arts thing. I don't know what it's called. And it's going to require a long drive across the city of LA. So he's doing all the research. He's been emailing with them, and he's figuring out when we can go check the place out. So that's good. One thing that I thought is a little bit off topic here, but sort of along the same lines, my older son, a lot of his friends were the younger kids in their family, and he was always pushing us to do things like take the metro into downtown LA and do these different things that we weren't necessarily ready for. But I'm just realizing that my younger two, most of their friends are the oldest in their family. And also because of COVID, this 8th grade year for them was a year when my older son really tried a lot of new things. And they haven't really had those opportunities for a variety of reasons. So I'm thinking maybe with them, instead of holding back and feeling scared, it's almost like I need to push a little more and find ways to create those opportunities for them in a little bit of a different way, just because they haven't come up as naturally. So I guess that's one thing I would say. Sometimes the things that come up naturally and terrify you as a parent, of course you use your judgment. There were plenty of things we told him he couldn't do, but there were some things we really felt like, oh, are we sure? And then now looking back, I'm so glad that he tried those things and navigated public transportation and just some things like that. So I'm going to go to Kamira.
Good morning. So I slow walk my guys into adulthood. That we have 4 adult sons and 1 still adolescent. So we're definitely going through this with the adolescent, but actually there's some of it with the adult sons too, in that they want independence, they want to make their own decisions, but then they turn around and ask you to do things for them that they should be doing themselves and should have been doing for a while. and I'm always stuck between, did I do something so that made him incapable of doing this, or think he's incapable, or is it him just not being as independent as he wants to be? We do a lot in our house of, just because you can doesn't mean you should or that you will, because they ask you to do all kinds of wonderful things. I like Emily's idea of, if you can do X, then you can do Y. We do that a lot, of earning your independence. And the older they get, the more I kind of, bite on the knuckle and watch them do things, because I keep reminding myself that we are raising adults, and they have to be able to take care of themselves when they leave the house. Because a lot of young people leave the house for college or whatever, and they can't take care of themselves. And some of that means that they have to be in unknown situations and know how to make judgment calls, whether it's, I'm old enough to navigate public transportation or whatever. I get a lot of flack for forcing independence on the kids. My husband is a real softie. He will do anything they want for them. And I'm like, no, that's because it's not gonna pay dividends in years to come. They have to be able to take care of themselves. But whenever there's a situation where the independence is worked out, I always circle back and say, remember? I remember when one of our sons was going away to sleepaway camp with a friend, and they were flying alone, and they had a layover with switching planes and the whole bit. And my son used to hate it when we'd be in the airport. I'd make him read the boarding pass, and I'd pretend like I didn't know he had to do everything. But then when he returned from camp, he said, my friend didn't know anything. I had to drag him around. He was doing these silly things. I was like, you see. So I think the slow walk is good. We have a lot of struggle and fights here about what you're old enough. We have one coming up soon because we have the high schooler has some older friends, and they're having parties that I'm not sure that I'm ready for him to go to. Out of state weekend parties. So I'd be happy to know how you guys would handle that. I'm going to let's send it to Jessica, since she's been on the other side most recently.
Yeah, goodness, because my independent, like, I was always a very lazy kid. I was never really gunning for independence. I was never like, I want to go on all these trips by myself. And I know I had like weird gaps. Like I think I went on my first trip without my parents, like on a plane when I was 12. And it was chaperoned, so it wasn't like I was doing everything by myself, but I was like, all right, we do this, and this, and then I got in trouble because I forgot that I had to pay for the hot dog that I bought. So I think, and a lot of it's practice. Like I didn't know how to do my laundry until college, but I was always pretty good at kind of figuring that stuff out on the fly. I don't know. I guess just it's just weird about which things I picked up early enough that it came in handy in college, and which things I had to really like, oh yeah, I need to make doctor's appointments. I missed out on that for several years before I was like, oh yeah, no, I should probably just pick up the phone and go to a doctor for, an annual checkup. I don't know. I don't have any tips other than you got to get your kids to practice if you want them to get good at it. 'Cause some of them I'm still not very good at. Although I did make my vaccine appointment all by myself, so win for me. See all the applause. Made one for my little brother too. So yeah, I think that's all I got. Sorry. I'm gonna pass it down to Eka.
Good morning. This question was I was thinking, and then I remember how annoying I was when my kids were teens. So what I would do is, if they had, let's just say they had to make an appointment, or they had to get, like, we gifted them a car, but then they had to be responsible for, we would say we would pay for the oil changes, whatever, but they had to do all that themselves. And so then if they didn't, I would say, okay, here's the deal. Today is Monday. If you don't make the call and make an appointment that you need to tell me, because then they go there and then I pick them up, whatever. by Friday, then I'm going to start nagging. So then I gave them a time to be able to do it. And then on Friday, instead of just nagging, because I just didn't want to become that like screaming, raving lunatic, I would then start like singing songs and being like, how's the appointment? How's the appointment? Did the appointment come on? What time? And then it was just so annoying to them that they decided that it was just easier to make the appointment and tell me when it was, as opposed to me like in their face singing and dancing the car appointment song. So I tried to, so instead of, because otherwise I'd have been like, I'm going to just tear my hair out. So that's how I made it. So it wasn't driving me crazy all the time. But now, fast forward, my kids are older now, and I actually find that I like doing stuff for them that before, I didn't want to. Now that they can do it for themselves, I'm almost like doing it. Like, I'm like, oh, I'll do the grocery shopping for you. Like if, all this kind of stuff. And my daughter was visiting with her fiance, and we were watching that video of Saturday Night Live video where the girls come home for the holidays. Do you guys know which one I'm talking about? Like, what is it? Like the ballers come home and we were just all laughing. And her fiance says, well, of course you think that's funny. That's exactly the way your parents treat you. And I didn't realize that because we didn't for so long, but now that they're older and they come home, that's totally the way we are. So it's so funny to see how it changes. Like you go from grow up to then almost kind of like going, I'll take care of you. So that's my whole thing, was like my annoying song and dance. So it sounds like Emily's got something. Go, girl.
Oh, well, I just wanted to say something that you said and something that Kamira said made me think. I wanted to put one point of the teen perspective in, because my oldest son is a senior and he's getting ready to graduate and head off to college. And something we talked about not too long ago was with this idea of like the way we talk about independence and leaving home and being on your own. We had to have a conversation about how, of course, there's still support and asking for help, and how adults ask for help all the time. And when you start a new job, when you start anything new, you have like a few days of support. And I talked about like things that I do for the magazine and running it by someone first and having someone proofread it or edit it. And I just think like parents are so focused on it, rightly so. I mean, we want them to be competent, because we know if you don't go into the world feeling competent, you can struggle. But I do think it's important to make sure the kids know, like, we want you to have these skills because we love you, but we will always, you can always ask us for help. And there's also, counselors and friends and tutors and advisors and, all sorts of, colleagues, mentors, just all sorts of people that, adults rely on each other for support all the time. And so I thought that was just so like interesting that, he didn't realize that necessarily. And so to explicitly state like, there are webs of support, your dad has support in his job. I have support in my job and the volunteering I do. And, that idea that adults, just because we talk about independence all the time, doesn't mean that we don't all have kind of our structures of support. So anyway, sorry. I just never expected talking about the independence would leave him feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to leave home and then I really am going to be on my own. So I'll pass it to Jen.
Thanks, Emily. That was some really good insight. I find it hilarious, the things that my kids still ask me for help with. They're in college and they're quite capable of so many things. But one thing that seems universal is that if they're at home and I'm within earshot and they're reheating leftovers, they seem to be completely incapable of knowing how long anything goes in the microwave. 100% of the time, they will ask me, how long should I reheat this for? And I'm always like, what is the worst thing that could happen? Like, you know the range of possibilities here. Do you really need me to tell you, try it for 30 seconds and then stir it and put it back in for 30 seconds? And I realize that they don't need me, but I'm there and it's easy. Same thing with the weather. I mean, they have Google right on their phone. They can do the same thing I can do, which is find out what is the weather going to be today or tomorrow. They'll be like, you know, what should I, if we're going somewhere, they're like, well, what should I wear? What should I bring? They don't need me. They really don't. But it's just a matter of convenience and comfort to have that little extra voice to tell you, this is how you do it. So what I've learned is that if you're not there, they will figure it out. And if you are there, they might just like the sound of your voice. I don't know. Maybe, I guess we should take it as a vote of confidence. But, you know, I have one kid who managed to convey herself as to the farthest point of the planet that you can be from where we are. Literally the farthest point of the planet without my help. But coming back from a trip, you know, domestically, she texts me, I'm waiting for her at the airport and she's not coming out and she's not coming out and she's not coming out. And she texts me and she goes, how do I know where my bag is? I'm like, you look at the monitor, and if it's not on the monitor to tell you where it is, you ask someone, why are you texting me? You can figure this out. But it's something about being within proximity makes them weak and helpless and dependent once again. So it's what I'm trying to say is this is not a linear progress. It is 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and they do get there. Eventually they're able to do all these things on their own. But I think sometimes they enjoy having the comfort of coming back just to get that little reassurance, like, oh yeah, how do I do that again? Just the other day, one of them texted me and said, that plant you gave me died. What do I do with it? I'm like, you throw it away. Just throw it out. It's okay. They just sometimes like that little bit of reassurance. So if any of this sounds like you and your kids, I have a great idea for you. You might want to tune in to we're having a college summit going on right now. If you're not aware of it, I think Jody will put the details or Jessica will. And tomorrow, the experts we're talking to are Wendy Mogul and Julie Lithcott-Hames. And the topic is life skills, because we do all this work to get our kids ready to go to college, but we sometimes forget to do the work that allows them to be comfortable being on their own at college, to Emily's point. Beautifully said. So Julie Lithcott-Hames, she wrote a book called How to Be an Adult. And she also has one for teens, the teen version one, or no, the one for parents is How to Raise an Adult. The one for teens is called Your Turn, I think. And then Wendy Mogul wrote Blessings of a B- and Blessings of a Skin Knee, which was the earlier version of that for toddlers and little kids. And they both have some great words of wisdom on how to make sure that we don't get in the way of our own kids' success and independence. So it's not too late to sign up for this. You might want to get on board and get some great advice for tomorrow. So that's and also I just want to mention that on Wednesday, Eka's going to be my coffee date because Sharon's out of town and Eka is going to be in the hot seat. And we're going to talk about organization, which is like Eka's most favorite thing in the world. So, and what happens when you have a disorganized kid. So join us. It's tomorrow is the life skills. Wednesday in the morning is coffee with Eka and Jen. I think back to Jody.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So I know, Jessica, you had something else that you wanted to add. Just give me 1 second. Eka and Jen talking about organization is a match made in heaven. So I wouldn't want to miss that. So
I'm the disorganized one, by the way. Just
that's what, it's perfect.
And I'm super, super organized.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, you know, I was thinking a lot about what people said, and I think that there is, to a certain extent, there is no teacher like necessity. You know, if our kids need to do something, you know, they will figure it out. And it's just kind of making them feel confident that they can if they have to. And I mean, I cannot count how many phone calls home I fielded regarding cooking. And if I had tried to teach my kids to cook while they were home, they would have just looked at me and laughed. And I probably would have laughed too, because I wouldn't want them to cook because I like to cook. And, you know, so I think sometimes you have to kind of have that experience where you need to know something. And I was also thinking, as you guys were talking, that I do think there is something to be said maybe for birth order, because I know my husband and I always talk about that if we drop the 3 of our kids off in the middle of somewhere, we know our youngest one has the skills to be able to do whatever it takes. I'm not, and probably, I don't know, it would be a race to the bottom with my other 2. We love them, but not sure. But, so I think part of it is that as parents, we just, I don't know if it's just different with the, depending on how old or how many kids you have, where you feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to help them do this. And then by the end, you're like, oh my gosh, you got to do this on your own. I can't. So I think there's a little bit of that. And then the other thing is, and I think we're all kind of circling around, is that it really, really takes time if you want to do this. Like, Eka, you talked about, I gave them the week to get this done. And, and it affects you because you're the one who's still got to be there to help them, and you're providing the ride while, the service is getting done. And, my, one of my kids and my husband worked for 2 hours yesterday, which just reminds me, because now I need to call a plumber because their efforts were unsuccessful, but they worked for 2 hours trying to fix a sink. And my husband came back and he was so excited. He goes, I had the best time. But they had the time, they had the tools. There was not this pressure that there usually is, that there were a million other things going on. So they could really try to do this. And, hopefully my son's takeaway isn't that you should have just called the plumber first, but who knows, but that there were some of these skills getting passed on. And that is also, a hard thing to carve out with some of this stuff. It's so much more convenient for us to kind of just do it. But I think, and there is also getting over their fear factor, what Emily was saying, that they're not sure what's going to happen. And I think, even making phone calls in front of them on speakerphone so they can hear how nice the other people are and how you do have this village might be helpful too. So, those are just some things that I thought about. Jen, you want to share a couple comments? And then I know Jessica had one other story that she wanted to tell.
Oh, we had a couple people in the comments, and I thought if Jessica, maybe if you want to put up their comments for us. Lori said she's going to join us tomorrow and Wednesday. Thanks, Lori. Always happy to have you along for the ride. And then Jessica has great information, and I like that she talks about how it's important to acknowledge that teens have their own timetable. They don't all hit the same milestones at the same time. That is 100% true. And also other factors that they're struggling with, like depression or, COVID, like all of us, ADHD, just adolescence, just being an adolescent is a job on its own. So yes, Jessica, those are some really great points. Thanks for sharing that.
Okay, Jessica Port,
I just wanted to. I do actually remember my dad being very insistent that I do some of the stuff for myself, like pumping gas. I needed to get a job. I needed to be able to pay for certain things myself. And I remember just endlessly complaining, like, why do I have to do this? This is stupid. I'm not going to need to, whatever. I can do this stuff myself. I'll figure it out. And I remember calling my father in tears, trying to get the gas to pump for my car, and I couldn't figure out how to do it because he'd always been there to walk me through step by step, and I was clearly missing a step. I couldn't figure it out. Just so upset. A stranger came and consoled me because I was just this crying 16-year-old girl holding the gas pump. You were supposed to put your card in first before you pump the gas, which is a very important step. So I guess the moral of that story is your kids are going to complain, and that's just going to happen. Make them do it anyway, or else they're probably going to get very sad at a gas station at the age of 16.
Yeah, it's hard. And we didn't even get to talk about today. Maybe that'll be another topic. What are the things that we really think our kids, need to do? Because I feel like that's a shifting sand too, and by the way, there's so many things that they can do that I can't right now as well. So maybe it should be mutual. What do we need to learn, and what do they need to learn? And I would be willing to guess that some of them are very different. We'll just end this by saying too, I think some of the things that our kids drag their tails on are still the same things that we drag our tails on. We want them to do this, but let's face it, we're nearing 11 and I still haven't called the plumber, and I completely put it out of my mind, probably because I'm in denial. So it's, adulting is hard and it's real. So I suppose we all need to just be nice to each other and help each other through it. So, All right, everybody. Well, I think that's it for today. Unless, does anybody else have anything they want to add before we sign off? All right, and we will be back next week with Behind the Scenes. I hope everybody has a good week, and you'll be catching we got all sorts of things going on, as Jen said, so hopefully you'll catch some of these other shows. Okay, take care. Bye.